Jesus viu Natanael aproximar-se e comentou: Eis aí um israelita verdadeiro.
Não há nada de falso nele.
De onde me conheces?
Eu o vi quando estava debaixo da figueira antes que Filipe o chamasse.
Tu és o Filho de Deus. Tu és o Rei de Israel.
A radically different course. And from this one man evolved a people unlike any other. A people who cross paths with virtually every great civilization in history. A people whose history is unlike any other. A people whose impact on humanity is unprecedented. A people who are known to the world as simply the Jews. Over 3,300 years ago, an event took place that happened only once in human history. And that was an entire nation experienced and witnessed divine revelation at Mount Sinai. The giving of the Torah, the Ten Commandments, the 5 books of Moses, by God to the Jewish people and through them to the world. What happened at Mount Sinai changed the world forever. For the first time in history, man had been given a divine moral compass, a guide for how to best live one's life, to perfect oneself and the world. In the ancient world, in the eastern part of the Fertile Crescent, also known as the cradle of civilization, is the Holy Land, the land of Israel. And there, for centuries, the Jewish people flourished and lived in peace. And then, because they did not live up to their divine covenant, the Jews faced destruction after destruction at the hands of their enemies. First came the Babylonians, then the Persians, then the Greeks, and finally, with all their fury, the Romans, who forced them into exile and dispersion. For over 2,500 years, Jews suffered persecution. They were tortured and massacred, their synagogues burnt, their women violated, their books vandalized and set ablaze, century after century after century. Throughout their history, and even until modern times, for reasons of jealousy, of people blaming the ills on a convenient scapegoat, and because Jews stood up and continue to stand up for the absolute moral standard that comes from the belief in one God and the holiness of human purpose. The Jews have faced and continue to face the demonic and destructive forces of anti-Semitism. There is no greater example of this than the evil of one man who projected his own failings and those of his followers on the Jews, and that was Adolf Hitler.
Providence has ordained that I should be the greatest liberator of humanity. I am freeing man from a false vision called conscience and morality. The 10 Commandments have lost their validity. Conscience is a Jewish invention. It is a blemish. the heaviest blow which struck humanity was Christianity. The struggle for world domination is between me and the Jews. All else is meaningless.
For over 2,500 years, since the first exile in 586 BCE, Jews were scattered across the globe like stubble in the wind.
God will then scatter you among the nations, from one end of the earth to the other.
For over 2,500 years, Jews were driven out of their homes in country after country after country. But despite the persecutions and even the unimaginable destruction of the Holocaust, sustained by their unswerving faith and trust in God and His Torah, throughout those 2,500 years, something remarkable happened. The Jews not only survived, but flourished and changed the world. Quote, Paul Johnson, author, A History of the Jews and a History of Christianity.
It is almost beyond our capacity to imagine how the world would have fared if they, the Jews, had never emerged. Certainly the world without the Jews would have been a radically different place. Humanity might have eventually stumbled upon all the Jewish insights, but we cannot be sure. To them we owe the idea of equality before the law, sanctity of life, dignity of the human person, social responsibility, peace as an idea, and many other items which constitute the basic furniture of the human mind. Without it, the world might have been a much emptier place.
Quote, John Adams, the second President of the United States.
The Hebrews, the Jews, have contributed more to civilized man than any other nation. They have given religion to 3/4 of the globe, and have influenced the affairs of mankind more and more happily than any other nation, ancient or modern.
Quote, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States.
The laws of Moses contributed suggestions and impulses to the men and institutions, which were to prepare the modern world, and if we could have but the eyes to see, we should readily discover how much besides religion we owed to the Jews.
One remarkable fact is that since Alfred Nobel first created his prize, over 1/5 of all the Nobel Prizes have been awarded to Jews. Jews who comprise only less than 1/2 of 1% of the world's population, and yet have received over 20% of the Nobel Prizes for the greatest scientific, social, economic, creative, and intellectual contributions to the progress of mankind. But it is not only in their pursuit of human excellence that Jews have contributed more to the world relative to their numbers than any other people throughout history. It's their passion for meaning, purpose, morality in life, and their respect for human dignity that Jews have always been, for good and for bad, at the forefront of change. Quote, Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister.
Some people like the Jews, and some do not. But no thoughtful man can deny the fact that they are beyond any question the most formidable race that has ever appeared in the world.
But over and above their contributions to mankind, something else, something quite astonishing, occurred throughout Jewish exile. Over 2,500 years ago, there were approximately 10 million Jews in the world. Today, there are just under 14 million. In comparison, 2,000 years ago, there were approximately 30 million Chinese in the world. Today, there are over 1.4 billion. Throughout history, as if ordained, the Jews have remained small in number.
And only a small number will remain among the nations where God shall lead you.
And throughout these 2,500 years of exile, something equally astonishing happened. The Jews never let their dream of returning to their God-given ancient homeland. They never lost hope. They never stopped believing that one day their dispersion would end. In 1978, before a Soviet court about to sentence him to 15 years in prison for the so-called crimes of studying Hebrew, practicing Judaism, and requesting a visa for Israel, Natan Sharansky said,
"For 2,000 years, the Jewish people, my people, have been dispersed all over the world, and still, each year Jews have stubbornly and apparently without reason said to each other, Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. And today, when I am further than ever from my dream and from my people, and when many difficult years of prison camps lie ahead of me, I say to my wife and my people, Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem."
After 9 years of imprisonment, Natan Sharansky was freed, and in 1986 he emigrated to Israel. And the communist regime that suppressed and incarcerated him collapsed. After the Nazis were defeated in 1945, in 1948, only 3 years later, the United Nations voted for the re-establishment of the Jewish homeland, the State of Israel. To date, after 2,500 years of dispersion to over 100 countries on 5 continents, the Jews are the only people throughout history to survive, retain their identity, and return not only once, but twice from exile to their ancient homeland. To understand the Jews, one has to understand history and the remarkable role they have played in it. However, to understand how they have survived, despite all odds, one has to look past history, into the world beyond the natural, into the realm of the divine. Here is what Sir Thomas Newton, Bishop of Bristol, said about the Jews in the 18th century.
The preservation of the Jews is really one of the most single and illustrious acts of divine providence. What but a supernatural power could have preserved them in such a manner as no other nation has been preserved, and no less remarkable is the destruction of their enemies. Let it serve as a warning to all those who, at any time or occasion, are raising a clamor or persecution against them.
I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you.
If history and the story of the Jews has proven anything, it is that God has kept his covenant, his promise to the Jewish people. Here is a quote by Leon Tolstoy, the Russian writer, written in 1908.
What is the Jew? What kind of unique creature is this whom all the rulers of all the nations of the world have disgraced, crushed, expelled, destroyed, persecuted, burned, and drowned, and who, despite the anger and fury of their oppressors, continues to live and to flourish. The Jew is the symbol of eternity. He is the one who, following the faithfulness of his ancestors, has for so long had guarded the prophetic message and transmitted it to all mankind. A people such as this can never disappear.
Writing about the Jews in 1899, Mark Twain observed that
the Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now or have vanished.
I mean, it was a very personal experience of evil.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes, yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right, yes.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all.
Chegou a hora de oficialmente reconhecer Jerusalém como a capital de Israel. Enquanto presidentes que me antecederam fizeram disso uma promessa importante de campanha, eles não cumpriram isso. Hoje, eu estou entregando o que prometi. Eu analisei e julguei esse tipo de ação como sendo no melhor interesse dos Estados Unidos da América e também na busca pela paz entre Israel e os palestinos. Isso é um passo que já deveria ter sido tomado faz tempo para avançar no processo de paz e para chegar a um acordo duradouro. Israel é um país soberano, com direito, como qualquer outra nação soberana, de determinar aonde fica sua própria capital. Agora, assumindo que isso é um fato, é também uma condição necessária para chegar à paz. Foi há 70 anos que os Estados Unidos, sob o presidente Truman, reconheceram o Estado de Israel. Desde então, Israel fez a sua capital, a cidade de Jerusalém, a capital do povo judeu estabelecida em tempos antigos. Hoje, Jerusalém é a sede do moderno governo de Israel. É sede também do Parlamento de Israel, a Knesset, assim como da Suprema Corte de Israel. É ali também que está localizada a residência oficial do primeiro-ministro e também do presidente. Fica ali também o quartel-general de muitos ministérios do governo. Por décadas, presidentes americanos que visitaram a região, secretários de Estado, militares, também encontraram com seus parceiros israelenses em Jerusalém, como aconteceu comigo quando eu fui a Jerusalém no início do ano. Jerusalém não é apenas o coração de 3 grandes religiões, mas é também o coração de uma das mais bem-sucedidas democracias do mundo.
Nossos ancestrais samaritanos adoraram a Deus nesta montanha. E vocês, judeus, dizem que é em Jerusalém o lugar onde se deve adorar a Deus.
Vocês, samaritanos, adoram o que não conhecem. Mas nós, judeus, adoramos o que conhecemos, porque a salvação vem dos judeus. Está chegando a hora. E já é agora. Os verdadeiros adoradores vão adorar o Pai, em espírito e verdade, porque são esses os adoradores que o Pai procura. Deus é espírito, e todos aqueles que o adoram devem fazê-lo em espírito e verdade.
Eu sei que vai chegar o Messias. E quando ele chegar, nos mostrará tudo.
Eu sou o Messias. Eu que estou falando contigo. Aqueles que fizeram o bem vão ressuscitar para a vida. Os que praticaram o mal vão ressuscitar, mas para a condenação. Eu não posso fazer nada por mim mesmo. Eu julgo conforme o que escuto e o meu julgamento é justo. Porque não procuro fazer a minha vontade, e sim a vontade daquele que me enviou. Se eu dou testemunho de mim mesmo, meu testemunho não vale como prova real. Mas há outro que dá testemunho em meu nome. E eu sei que o testemunho que ele dá de mim é válido. João, foi para ele que enviaram mensageiros, e ele deu testemunho da verdade. Eu não preciso do testemunho de um homem, mas eu falo isso para que todos vocês sejam salvos. João era como uma lâmpada que estava acesa e iluminava. E vocês quiseram se alegrar com sua luz. Mas eu tenho outro testemunho em meu nome, que é bem maior que o testemunho de João. O que eu faço são as obras que meu Pai me concedeu realizar. As obras que eu faço dão testemunho de mim. Elas testemunham mostrando que quem me enviou foi meu Pai. E o Pai que me enviou também deu testemunho a meu favor. Nunca ouviram a voz dele, nem viram a sua face. Assim a palavra dele não permanece em vós. Não acreditam naquele que ele enviou. Estudam as Escrituras pensando que vão achar nelas a vida eterna. No entanto, elas dão testemunho de mim. Mas não querem vir a mim para ter a vida eterna. Eu não aceito o elogio dos homens, pois eu já os conheço muito bem. E eu sei que o amor de Deus não está dentro de vós. Eu vim em nome do meu Pai, mas não quiseram me receber. Mas se outro vem em seu próprio nome, o receberão. Gostam de receber elogios uns dos outros, mas não buscam a glória que vem do Deus único. Como poderão acreditar? Não pensem, entretanto, que serei eu quem vai acusá-los diante do Pai. É Moisés. Nele põe suas esperanças, pois é ele quem irá acusá-los. Se acreditassem mesmo em Moisés, também creriam em mim, porque foi sobre mim que ele escreveu. Mas se não acreditam naquilo que ele escreveu, como vão acreditar nas minhas palavras?
Millions of concerned citizens are overwhelmed by the rapid demoralization of America. Are these changes natural grassroots movements or the work of social engineers who profit from the decline of our nation? We believe the decline of America is not inevitable, and when citizens understand what is happening, we will rise for justice to the true America. We will overcome. Recent leaked documents of hedge fund globalist George Soros and his Open Society foundations reveal that the atheist billionaire behind Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton is funding a massive network of organizations and even curious ministers who attack not only political opposition, but who advance Soros's radical and comprehensive social agenda for America. These leaks are confirmed by IRS and web documents of Open Society and related foundations. Like a bully on the playground, the Soros network has profited by funding the decline of cultures and economies.
I am particularly interested in changes in the rules of the game.
In 1930, Soros was born in Hungary. George's role model was his father, Tivadar Schwartz, who sold information about fellow Jews to the Nazi regime.
It was actually probably the happiest year of my life, that year of German occupation.
Changing their name to Soros, the family moved to England, where George studied at the socialist London School of Economics. Through his quantum fund, he amassed wealth by influencing events, elections, and currencies in Asia, Russia, and Europe. In 1992, he broke the Bank of England. In France, he became a convicted felon for insider trading. As Soros's global network weakens sovereign nations, it grows in wealth and power. Millions of people suffer the consequences. For several decades, their target has been America. Through his Open Society foundations, Soros postures himself as a philanthropist who has spent over $10 billion to fundamentally transform America. What is this so-called progressive network doing to us and how? They advance educational content in our schools, the transgender movement, drug legalization, the sex worker industry, abortion, euthanasia, open borders, the flow of Islamic refugees, and voting schemes. Their formula seems to be billions of dollars to activists and organizers, and funding to the media, funding to rented ministers, and funding to judges and politicians, which results in the fundamental transformation of America. Let's take a closer look. Circle 1, money. Joined by other globalist foundations like Ford, Tides, Gill, Arcus, Rockefeller, and Carnegie of New York, The Soros Network offers near infinite money to organizers and activists who create and swarm on events and issues to agitate political drama. While funding hundreds of media channels and technology networks to make their street theater our national narratives. To give the impression of the moral high ground, the Soros Network also funds what they call evangelical and Catholic mascots to serve as surprising validators for their anti-Christian projects and candidates. Imagine the evil of using a Christian front to de-Christianize the culture and nation. In this video clip from the New America Foundation, an executive admits their rent and evangelical model of social change.
Doing a sort of rent and evangelical, as we used to call it on the national security side, rent in general, model.
The network funds religious groups including Jim Wallace's Sojourners, PICO, Faith in Public Life, Faithful America, Richard Cizik's New Evangelical Partnership, Telos, J Street, National Council of Churches, Evangelicals for Human Life, Catholics United, Catholics in Alliance for the Common Good, Catholics for Choice, and through the network's National Immigration Forum, they fund religious groups advancing open borders, amnesty, and voter registration for their New America. Rather than advancing the whole counsel of Scripture as the highest love for people and culture, these useful ministers assist non-Christian policies, projects, and politicians with faith words, optics, organizing, and media to confuse Christian and other value voters, to recruit the church into their radical political agenda, and to help the left's politicians get elected.
You are absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that that has not come my Christian faith.
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision.
All of which works to fundamentally transform America.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
The Soros network of money and activists breaks down life-giving wisdom of marriage and the family with progressive education, alternative identities and sexualities, abortion, and soon euthanasia. The network grows government power, taxes, welfare dependency, and debt. The Soros network breaks down civil society and ethnic harmony by hiring organizers to create street theater that becomes our ugly national narratives. The network advances illegal migration and unvetted refugees, bringing crime, disease, drugs, and even terror to America. The Bible teaches wise welcome, not open borders. The network advances many Islamist projects endangering Europe, Israel, and America. It aided President Obama's nuclear deal, giving $150 billion to Iran, a state sponsor of terror. Now, after 8 years of President Obama forcing open borders, the network is supporting voter fraud by documenting undocumented people to vote.
Turn your centers, Islamic centers, mosques, into registration centers for voters, into polling stations during the election time. Black Lives Matter is our campaign.
And after decades of collaboration with the Clintons, George Soros is now the chairman of Ready for Hillary PAC.
We have been given an extraordinary blessing, and at this moment in time, our country needs us. And we need people like George Soros, who is fearless and willing to step up when it counts.
The formula works, and here's the key. The well-funded and organized minority, the Soros network, overwhelms the unorganized majority. This method of social change created tragic consequences throughout the 20th century and now advances a radical progressive political and social agenda that is regressive and openly hostile to the church and nation. What's the end goal? Demoralizing and weakening the once strong America grows the unchecked power of a tiny global elite.
I had to experiment, and it was a learning process. The first part was this subversive activity, disrupting repressive regimes. That was a lot of fun.
This is now our fight for the faith, for our nation, and for the human race against a godless, dehumanizing machine. It's time for the church and nation to stand up to these tactics of transformation, or what we might call killing America. It's time to speak truth to power, because the true America is more loving and life-giving than the new America of globalist social engineers. Our silence in the face of this onslaught is unchristian, un-American, and unloving. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer warned the church in the 1930s, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. What can faithful Americans do? 1. Share this video. 2. Vote. 3. Let's abide again in the roots of the American experiment. Let's regrow the branches of culture that the tree of culture could heal and again flourish. On the strong foundation of the Bible, our Declaration and Constitution, let's rebuild every pillar of our nation from the foundation up. For the kingdom of God and for the nation we are called to steward. It's time for the common citizen to abide in God's truth for strength and courage, to love one another by embracing biblical and constitutional wisdom, to rebuild our broken foundation, to be the people, to be God's people, and to rise because of love.